for the attendance. Appreciate it. Something that's interesting. So this is a mix of tips, advice, some strategies. I've just tried to throw together everything that I believe factors into writing something for a college app or essay for Common App, and really any sort of writing like fiction, anything. It generally follows these principles, but we're sticking really with college apps for this. You got to write about people. Obviously, the first person that you should be writing about is yourself, but you don't need to be afraid to incorporate other people who are in your life, and they don't have to be good people. If people have been a negative force that have turned you into the good person you are today, include them, right? Especially if they're important. I'm going to show you an essay today where the person writes about a fairly negative influence in this person's life, but it's important for their journey. Okay. So like I say, you didn't develop into an amazing person in a vacuum, so to speak, like by yourself. There are other people have factored into it. So they should be included. So why are people interesting? There's more to this slide. Hopefully you haven't looked ahead. I'm just curious. I posed that question to my hybrid students yesterday in 8th block. I shut down class and then I just said, why are people interesting? And I know they were just looking at me like, why did I choose hybrid? Like, why is he asking me this? But I pose that to you now. Elena says because they're complex. But what makes them, what does that mean, they're complex, Elena? What do you mean by that? Everyone is different. Their reactions or actions to something. Okay, yeah, how they react to things. Have a distinct personality you can pinpoint. But what factors into that personality, Francis? Okay, so Elena, what you're hitting at is two things right there. Values, like how you react, like what you care about, that defines how you react, and also your personal history, what has happened to you, what you have accomplished, and perhaps how you have failed. Confidence and charisma, and that gets, Zainab, I think that gets into like life code, like how you live. Do you live by a motto? I think didn't I ask you that at the beginning of the year? Did I take that out of my beginning of the year survey? I used to ask students, like, what motto do you live by? And I think I got rid of it because I felt like a lot of the answers were kind of hollow, or just like somebody was just like Googling like life mottos I can put. An interesting person, someone you can clearly label as funny or smart, and you can associate those traits with a person. Okay. Interesting. But Francis, aren't all people interesting? Is there such thing as a boring person? There's a person who's boring to be around, but if you, oh God. I disagree though. If you spend enough time with a person learning about what the life they've lived and the choices they've made, there's no one who is just straight up boring. There's people who are, no, there are boring people. No, Francis, you're not looking deep enough at them. And maybe for good reason. Maybe they're just awful, annoying. There's annoying people. There are like unmotivated people. But there's no one who's just straight up has not lived a life and does not have a combination of experiences that make them boring. Megan says you can live an interesting life but still be boring. No, but y'all are just going by like what people make you feel, right? And that's separate from just the life they've lived. And if you look at them objectively, okay? Does that make sense? Like present someone to me that you think is boring, okay? Bring them to the floor, Francis or Megan. Just give me an example of my brother is boring. But I mean, that's to you, Amara. To you, your brother's boring. You have to live with him every day. But if I looked at your brother objectively and looked at his life experiences and talked with him and learned about his interests, I might say, yeah, your brother can be annoying, but I don't find him to be a boring person. He only plays video games, but he thinks I'm boring because I spend all my day on the phone. Yeah, I think y'all have been living together, obviously, your whole lives, and you have. I'm getting off track a little bit, but I'm just trying to make the case that human beings are, yeah, Frances is just conceding because she wants me to stop this. I'll check once I'm done with this, Abby, but I'm confident you submitted, and obviously I'm not going to dock late points. So, all right, here's what I was able to distill as to why people are interesting. Because they are amazing and unpredictable. They accomplish amazing things, okay? All of us have had accomplishments to various degrees of amazing, of whatever the word is. We're also flawed in very specific and also unexpected ways, right? We also, and I think this is the final part, and Kai helped me with this in 8th block, or was it Kai or Layla? I think it was Layla. She talked about codes or morals that we live by. We often have different codes we live by that are different from each other, and meeting someone who lives by a completely different code is very interesting. They're like, I'm not going to do this because I don't believe in doing that. And a lot of times people don't define their codes, but you can see it in the way they behave. You see that in class, right? And so to conclude this part, you're interesting because of your specific accomplishments, your specific flaws, and the code by which you live. No one has the same combination of these features as you, okay? And notice that word that I keep repeating, specific, specific, specific. And that's going to be something that I keep hammering home with this lesson and with your essay. As you work on it this summer, just keep thinking about specifics in your life. Okay, so so humans are interesting. You're interesting. The people around you are interesting. So write about you and what makes you interesting. Also be active when you write, meaning it should be about you and your actions. So if your essay is focused on the future and like what you want to happen, or if God forbid you're talking about, yeah, that's fine, Abby. Or if it's all about imaginary scenarios or ruminations about other people or cultures or comparisons to your life in a TV show, it's not about you, and therefore it's no good. So let's look at these. These are from Champ students who shared, who made the bad decision to share their essays with me over the summer, and now I'm using them as examples right now. But the good thing is, so this student is going to a top 10 university, and I'm going to show you what he eventually wrote and turned in to get him into that top 10 university. And it wasn't this. Let's look at what he wrote. This is what he sent me over the summer. At the age of 8, I watched disappointed as a Namibian newlywed couple stormed out of my one-star travel agency. Having been certain that the couple would be content with the Istanbul vacation package that I had offered them, I began questioning why they had deserted me. Had I been too aggressive in selling them the vacation package? No. After all, how aggressive could an 8-year-old be? Had the couple longed for a more romantic vacation? Sure, but did they not understand that every vacation package, blah, 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 blah. So the punchline to this all is, this was an imaginary scenario he was playing in his head. My travel agency was a mere figment of my imagination. Why is that bad? Why is that a horrible start to an essay? Like he lovingly crafted this intro. Like it was clearly a lot of attention was paid to it. But in terms of learning something about this student in a positive way, do we get anything actionable? Because it kind of tricks you. It's not the fact that you're tricking. It's just the fact that like there's nothing about what he actually did. And this kind of brings it back to Lang, because in Lang, the only type of good evidence is real, tangible, specific evidence. And in your college essay, he's being like, your daydreams are not good evidence. It's not something he really did. He was just sitting there passively imagining being a travel agent. It's weird. It's quirky for sure, but it doesn't make for something that you want to make the focus of a 1,000 word essay. If this was like his memoir where he had 50,000 words to spare, yeah, he could do it. But for one essay, for a snapshot to get into an elite East Coast school, no, not good. And he knew it, and I knew it, and I told him, and then he revised. Okay, so should I show you the one, comparisons to your life in a TV show? We got to look at this one, okay? So this student's going to one of our state's most prestigious universities, and this student sent me this bad boy back over the summer. My mother and I had always been close. I was her miracle baby. When she went in for a hysterectomy and saw me on the ultrasound, I was unsure. There was a moment of pure elation or pure terror. Either way, I was certainly a surprise, creating an undeniable bond between my mother and I, even before I was born, blah, 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 blah. Then she starts talking about Gilmore Girls. Gilmore Girls, the critically acclaimed TV show. All right, now, first of all, Gilmore Girls are not critically acclaimed. The show's trash. I mean, it's a popular show, but it's not critically acclaimed. Quickly became more like watching an autobiography. Yeah, no, look, you like what you like. I mean, I'm not judging you if you like it, but it's like kind of, it's wrong to call it critically acclaimed. It's just like categorically not true. We found the show in December 2016, scrolling through Netflix while recovering from the most recent binge watch. From the pilot, the show seemed perfectly to capture my mother and I's relationship. Of course, my mom was not 16 when she had me, but the show resonated with us nonetheless. After all, it had been my mom and I against the world since the beginning. Academically oriented, Rory was the living embodiment of my personality, ambitious and lighthearted, fun and serious, a yin-yang, dynamic, so on and so forth. But like, my issue with this, as I expressed to the student, was not that it was about Gilmore Girls. Like, fine. Well, that actually is the issue. Not that Gilmore Girls specifically. It's that she's comparing her life to a TV show, and she's not, we get no real actions. The actions that are described in this are done by who? Not her, but her. This seems less about her, but about who? What was that intentional in Vitha? I think that's the first time in Vitha I ever unmuted all year. No, it was about her mom, and it's like it's pretty. Yeah, it's like who cares? It's not about you. You were a fetus. You had no agency. You had no You have 1,000 words. You need to be active. You, the person who is in the essay, who is the subject of it. If you're bobbling around on an ultrasound, you're wasting time, man. You're wasting time. If you're talking about sitting binge watching Gilmore Girls and be like, that's kind of like us. No, that's not good. That's not good. You're not being active. You're sitting on your butt watching Gilmore Girls. Like, get out of here, man. The highly acclaimed show, Gilmore Girls. This student would be so mad if a student knew I was using this essay, this draft. All right, you get what I'm saying? Hopefully, we're defined by our actions, are we not? Like you, well, look, I'm not doxing these people, and I'm going to show you a few essays at the end where I did ask permission from the students to share them with you. But for these little like snapshots of what not to do, I knew that these students experienced success this year. So it's not like I'm kicking them while they're down or anything like that. So fair game. I read a lot of these. I wrote letters of rec for all of them. So that's the, did they give me gifts for writing them a letter of rec? No. So this is my revenge, I guess. You get to choose what actions you present to colleges for them to judge you against. What I meant to put there was others, right? Judge you against the other applicants, okay? So choose the actions that define you best. And the word best applies both ways. Like what defines me most appropriately, but also what presents me, what actions have I done that put me in the best light, okay? So it's a combination of both. What captures me the most appropriately, but what also shows me at my best. Okay, so that gets to specifics. So the same way like a handwritten note carries more weight than a generic text message, specifics in an essay always carry more value than something that is vague. They convey authority about yourself. And have you ever met people who don't even seem to really understand themselves? It takes introspection to understand yourself. And it is like, I'm not being glib about that. It's easy to go through life and not examine yourself and understand yourself. And that's what's kind of shocking sometimes when I read first drafts, is that students are trying to look at themselves for the first time and they've never had to do it. And then what they produce is like a funhouse mirror, right? Like, they're like, oh, really? You think that's you? Like, that's not you at all. I can barely make out you in this, or I can't even see you. You're not even looking in a mirror. You're looking at a wall that's painted black and I'm not getting anything there, right? And with those specifics, it's not just authority, but there's also the emotional appeal, okay? And we'll get to that in just a sec. So let's look at this. Remember when we read this last class? As I enter the restaurant, the smell of fried food hits me almost instantly. I trace the fan blades as they swing above me, emitting a low, repetitive hum resembling a faint melody. After bringing our usual order to the table, my father begins discussing the recent stock performance with my mother, myself, and my sister. We do this a lot, and then we often go to the library afterward. With one hand on my book and the other on my food and the other on my book, I can barely sit still as the story unfolds. As I delve into the narrative with a sip of my drink, I feel at home. Do we all remember reading that last class? Do you remember it? Well, we kind of remember reading it, but this actually isn't the exact paragraph. I tricked you. I was a trickster, but y'all already knew it, I'm sure. What is lacking in this paragraph? What's missing? Aside from the error at the very end, what feature is missing from that paragraph that was present in the final draft of it? The restaurant's name, that's one thing, Marina. And that was what? What type? That's it was Bojangles. It's a specific detail. And yeah, it was telling. Yeah, you're right. So look, here's the actual paragraph. And I bolded the specific details that I got rid of. As I entered through the double doors, it wasn't the smell of fried food, it's freshly rolled biscuits. I didn't change anything in the second paragraph. The student named the name of the order, the tailgate special. They didn't just say my dad was discussing stocks with my mom. She said apple stock. With my older 11-year-old sister. What's so crucial about that specific detail? Exactly. We know that she is younger than 11, so this is taking place a long time ago. Exactly. Bojangles, the southern establishment well known for its fried chicken and reliable fast food, is my family's Friday night restaurant, often accompanied with trips to Eva Perry, the nearby library. So we get more specifics about exactly what restaurant they're in, and then the name of the library they attend, as well as when they do this, Friday night. Why is the specific that it's Friday night important? Because it what?
Is it a routine?
It's a routine, and doing it on Friday night. It's quirky, isn't it? It's like most families probably don't go to get fried chicken and then go to the library on a Friday night. It's very quirky. Yeah. Then, I'm not like the other girls. What are you talking about, Megan? Is that like a popular cliche? I'm not like, LOL, you're quirky. The word quirky is associated with that phrase. I'm not. The pick me girl, is that? Yeah. I only know the pick me stuff from one like account that appears on my like Insta like search button thing. You know when it like suggests stuff? And it's one account, but when that student does like the pick me girl, it's always like a girl who, yeah, you're right. Yeah, she is saying I'm not like the other girl. She's like, okay, I get what you're saying. I guess the joke, Megan, is that when they say that, they really are like all the other girls. Is that kind of the joke? Yeah, okay. Can we say that this student has done a sufficient job of differentiating herself from the other girls? Yes, yes. But what's great about it is this student hasn't lived an exceptionally weird or arduous life. She just did a very careful job of examining it, of looking back at it. With specifics, okay? Okay, here's another important thing that I think you should try to do. In fiction, and good essays like this, they educate the reader in some way. And you don't know anything about the college admission person who is reading it, but if it helps, think of me. Think that I'm the person who's reading it. And you know enough about it's like the person reading it is college educated, and that's about it, right? Like they're not specifically skilled in any specific thing, and that's why they're reading college essays for a living for their university. And not surprisingly, like I said, I've met at least one person who used to be a college admissions officer who is now an English teacher. So just keep that in mind. You want to educate the person, obviously, about yourself, but also about your passion or the specific place you live. And you accomplish that through the specific details. So in Home, the one we just looked at, the reader learns about Bojangles. If you read further in the essay, you learn about different types of dance, about the intersection of science and governor school and how they all come together in Hillbilly, North Carolina, wherever this kid lives. I forget the name of the specific town. So we learn about all these passions and we get educated slightly about them, and we learn a little bit about her town. And that's what makes it memorable. That's what educates us in it. In Easter, the reader learns about the extent of the writer and her mother's determination. So it's an obstacle narrative. And like I said earlier, it doesn't sit still very long to show a lot of specific details, but the accumulation of them leave a strong impression of the writer's grit. And it's all about her passion. So we learn a lot. We're educated a lot about that student. And in the post, the final one that we looked at last class, the reader learns about the regressive culture of a fancy Catholic school. I need to lowercase the s in school, and the messy interaction of teens online. The writer's passion for feminism is also delved into a specific example. So we're educated about the writer's passion and where the writer lives. Does that make sense? If you can use specific details to educate your audience, embrace that. Like, I'm gonna pivot away from Sunjum and rocketry for a minute. So like Aliki or Amara, y'all are into dance. So if dance featured into it, you get specific about a dance move or a dance, a type of dance that you are learning. And if it's fundamental to if it's important in the journey that you're depicting in your essay, you want to use as many technical terms and explain it to the reader as possible, because that's interesting. That's what makes it interesting. That's what makes it memorable. Okay. Like, if Elena is writing about lacrosse, are there specific like lacrosse moves that you have to learn or things that happen, technical terms? Well, I mean, even the names of the positions are like specific in lacrosse, and they're different from soccer and all the other sports, right? There's no like quarterback in lacrosse, is there? Is there a midfielder? Oh, there is. Okay. But you get what I'm saying, though. You educate us on that. If you are, in fact, writing about a sport that you play, you get as specific and technical in the course of the important parts of that narrative to immerse us in there with those specific details. Don't feel like, oh, well, the reader won't know what I'm talking about, so I'm going to dumb it down for them. Don't dumb it down for them. You can, if somebody reads it and says, I don't understand what you're talking about, you can pull it back some. But the first draft, try to go as technical as possible and see how it looks. All right. And so in short, about educating the reader, give specific details about where you live and the people around you that show how growing up in this place and the places has affected you. Show how you are part of this Nova culture or how you don't fit in at all. But does Nova have a culture? That's debatable, but I think it does, right? Does South Riding, let's not even say Nova, because Nova encompasses like Prince William and Fairfax, and the culture of Fairfax is, depending on what part of Fairfax you're in, it's very different from here. The culture of Prince William, God knows, there's lots of parts of Prince William that are way different than South Riding. So South Riding, in my opinion, is a extremely unique, and a lot of you would say, well, it's not interesting and it's not cool and it's not fun, but that doesn't mean it lacks like specific details that make it stand out. And I think all of you have interacted in it in a way where you have decided, yes, this is my place, I fit in here, or no, I don't fit in here at all. And if you can show that to the reader, that will go a long ways to educating them and showing an awareness of your surroundings and yourself. Okay. And I promise I'm going to give some examples of essays that do this well. All right. Okay. So now we get to quirkiness, irony. I'm not like the other girls. How do you know if your essay is quirky enough? Here's something I thought of that I've attempted before. And I would recommend maybe you try this once you get a draft. Like, you take your essay and you do it line by line and you erase everything, or you make everything white except the first sentence, and read it to your friend and see if they can predict what's coming next. And if they can more or less predict what the next sentence is going to be, you're probably writing something that's not very interesting, and it's not very quirky, and it's predictable. Okay, so let's look at this one. My story begins at the age of 2 when I first learned what a maze was. Now, it's an excellent hook. Can anybody try to guess what we think the next sentence is going to be about? Somebody just take a stab at it. What do you think? What do you think the next sentence is going to be? Oh, all right. I remember getting lost in the corn maze at the Iowa State Fair or whatever, right? Yeah. All right, let's see if that's what it is. For most people, solving mazes is a childish phase, but I enjoy artistically designing them. Okay. And so what's the kid doing? The kid's making it about himself, active, and talking about how I'm not just so passionate about mazes. I don't think they're cool. I design mazes. Like, that's quirky. That's weird. You got lost in love. What is this? Got lost in your love of maze. What is that about?
It's just getting lost in a maze.
You said it was too predictable.
Oh, okay.
We all said lost. So I fixed it.
Yeah. I got you. I thought that was some other incomprehensible meaning that I wasn't familiar with. What do you think he's going to talk about next? I assume this is a guy. I don't know. This just seems like some very, very quirky, borderline weird guy thing. What do you think he's going to say next? All right, let's see. Eventually, my creations jump from their two-dimensional confinement, requiring the solver to dive through holes to the other side or fold part of the paper up, then right back again. Now, let's keep going. Around the age of 8, I invented a way for mazes to carry binary encoded messages with left turns and right turns representing 0s and 1s. All right. So we get tons of detail here, okay? And the kid's very active. We get lots of actions that he is doing. He's so passionate, he creates these. And subtly, we also get the impression, what quality does this kid have? If the kid said, I've always been passionate about Gilmore Girls. It's not expected because I'm a dude, but I love Gilmore, right? Is this a passive endeavor, designing mazes? No. It's like, now, I love baseball, but if I was in high school, I would never have written a personal essay I've always loved watching baseball. It's it's passive. You're just sitting there, right? Now, your friend Michael, yeah. Now, Michael's passion, he's so passionate, he created an Instagram account that has thousands of followers. That's worthy, perhaps, of an essay. In his interaction and how he's met people, that would be a fantastic subject for an essay. But it has to be something where you're doing things. Now, let's just keep looking at this essay real quick. This evolved into a base 3 maze on the surface of a tetrahedron with a crossing edge representing a 2. For me, a blank piece of paper represented the freedom to explore new dimensions, pushing the boundaries of a traditional maze making. I found a similar freedom in mathematics. Here's what I wrote when I was 9. And then he presents us with this. And it keeps going. Look at this.
What is that?
That's some sort of mathematical puzzle that's a maze. It's like the object of puzzle like these was to solve for each letter, assuming each represented a unique positive integer and that both sides of each equation are positive. They're not typical assumptions for practical mathematics, and I didn't even need 26 equations. Upon formally learning algebra, I was dismayed that proper math operated under a set of assumptions that 2 variables can be equal or be non-integers. Yet looking back, I now see that mathematics was so inspirational because there really is no proper way, no convention to hold me from discovering a completely original method of thought. Math was and still is yet another way for me to freely express my creativity and a different way of thinking without constraint. So this kid spent a lot of time showing his passion for this. He showed so much. He showed this insane math thing he produced or whatever, and then explained the logic behind it. But then he starts telling us what math means to him. And is this a moral code, more or less? Can we agree this is a code he lives by? Expressing his creativity through math, not feeling constrained by mathematics and rules, right? Lots of specifics, lots of details, lots of quirkiness. And I think he chose a very worthy and weird topic. All right. So we did that activity. Do it with your own when you write a draft. Do it with a friend. See if they can predict where it's going. Maybe not, I don't know, a friend might not be the right person to do it with, because if they know your life and the story that you're recounting, perhaps they'll be good at predicting it. I don't know. Maybe try to find somebody who's a little less familiar with you to do that. But it's a worthy exercise, I think. If you look back at Home, Easter, or The Post, all three have moments where the writer either explicitly or implicitly presents an ironic situation. In Home, it's that contrast between her family's intellect and in this hillbilly fried chicken place, and frankly, her doing all these very scholarly endeavors in North Carolina. In Easter, she mentions it was weird being from the ghetto and living in Paris for a certain amount of time. And in The Post, we have the irony of a student who is Asian American going to a Catholic school and stirring up trouble. Well, not stirring up trouble necessarily, but, you know, raising moral concerns about their pro-life stance. So that's what I'll say about irony and quirkiness, but I'll just note, you don't want to try to focus on being so like original that you go in the opposite direction and everything is so widely divergent that it doesn't make any sense. Okay. It's got to make sense still. All right. I think this is like the final thing I want to say. Writing with a moral purpose. So your essay should convey what you value and what sort of life codes you follow. If you're writing about your passion, how does this passion inform these beliefs? Every good essay touches on this briefly, and frankly, they almost always are going to touch on it near the closer to the end. You want to save it for the end of your essay. It's like the opposite of the essays we would write in class all year. They save their thesis, their like kind of statement for the end. Home waits for the very end to lay it out for us after showing lots of examples. If you're going to spell it out for the reader and tell it to the reader, you make sure you do a lot of showing first so it feels earned, okay? You've shown through actions. So let's look at the end of Easter, the one about being locked in the house. After the political turmoil of the Arab Spring and many Middle Eastern countries refused to grant women equal positions in society because they would contradict Islamic texts. By oppressing women, they're silencing half their population. I believe these Islamic texts have been misinterpreted through time, and my journey towards my own independence has inspired me to help other women find liberation as well. What is the student's moral purpose or moral code they live by? What do they stand for? Where does the student identify what she stands for or what she wants to do with her life? Maybe I should put it that way. To do what? Yeah. Yeah. She wants to help other women find liberation. Like she says that. That's what she stands for. Yeah, exactly, Francis. Yeah. But she waited until she had shown all of what she had gone through, experiencing oppression from her own father, experiencing it from people in Egypt, and having to watch her own mother like gain her own agency in a relationship with her father before she like kind of lays it out for us that this is what she believes, what the writer of the essay believes. Make sense? It's not easy. Like these things have to be carefully crafted, but hopefully talking about this is helping you, will help you get there faster than if you're just kind of wandering in the woods without knowing where you're going. Okay, so in conclusion, how do I find out what's interesting about me? Try answering these. You could try answering all three questions, or maybe just pick one. What have I accomplished in the past 3 years that gives me pride? What gives you pride? Not what have you accomplished, but what do you think back on and you're proud of it? And is there a quirky way of describing it? Can you use specifics to convey this in a way that would make you stand out from everyone else? Is there a lot of action that went into accomplishing it? Or what's something people learn about me that always surprises them? Is that worthy of an essay? Or what is my life code? What do I believe in? Summarize it in one sentence, then list 5 of your actions or past life events that prove you followed this code. Don't feel pressure to have profound, amazing answers to these questions. As long as the answers are passionate and specific, you probably have the root of something that could be a powerful essay. So remember the guy who did the travel agency draft? Here's what he ended up with. Here's what he ended up submitting. And we're not going to read the whole thing, but I'll just, we'll look at some of it. And again, he gave me permission. I changed a few things about this so it's not immediately apparent who this is. So it starts with, look at this, dialogue, showing, son, do you love, and I'm sorry, I cannot pronounce that, my Biba, holding back tears, my mother looked me dead in the eye, her questions confirming her suspicions. Of course I do, my 12-year-old voice squeaked defensively. Yet as much as I attempted to convince her otherwise, my mother's suspicions could not have been more true. As a 12-year-old, I did not love my grandmother. That's a hell of an opening, isn't it? Yeah. That's an important moment that's worthy of dramatizing and showing to us. And now he's going to tell us a little bit. However, my animosity towards my grandmother stemmed neither from her forcing me to consume more spoonfuls of her traditional Moroccan couscous than I could swallow, nor from her hugging me to a near point of suffocation. It stemmed from her wearing a hijab in public, an indication to all my family that my family and I were Muslim. Like, and he tells us all this, but it was set up with a little bit of that showing. And that hits hard, doesn't it? Like, this is a very worthy topic, and it's a personal topic. So the rest of the essay is about him learning to not only like become accepting that of his family's heritage, but also being proud of it and how he overcame that. And now is an advocate for Muslim rights and attended Virginia Summer Residence Governor's School for the Humanities. And he very much defines his moral code and what he values. But he did a great job of using specific details, Moroccan couscous, using the specifics of his grandmother's name. Like, it's, and notice this started with him trying to write about like, you know, some fake travel agency. Did not just fall down from heaven, okay? All right, one more. This one just came in to me. I asked permission from this student. And if you know who it is, just keep it to yourself, okay? Because it's a very personal essay and it's an intense essay, but it's so good. And I was so proud of the student. And it's very much worth sharing with you. My teacher's words turned to gibberish as I turned in my test, anxious to leave. On the trek to the parking lot, I was greeted by the crisp, cool air and the sight of falling amber leaves, a quintessential Virginia autumn. Pulling out my phone to call my dad, I saw dozens of text messages fill the screen. Immediately, I knew it wasn't my dad texting, but his angry state of intoxication. My fingers flew across the phone screen to call him. When the phone stopped ringing, I was only met with the demand, "Where are you?" I stayed after for the bio test we talked about yesterday, remember? "No, I don't." "You better walk home and think about the trouble you caused me," his slurred voice answered. I slowly lowered the phone as the line went quiet. He could never remember. Does he even care? I recall telling him my plans today. I couldn't walk home, could I? I couldn't. There were no sidewalks on the major roads. Besides, it was a 6-mile journey. Feeling conflicted, I started walking my way home before it got dark. So we have dialogue that's showing us the situation the student's in. The student could have started out just writing, I grew up with a very tough home life. I had a father who battled alcoholism, and it left me in a lot of weird situations. But the student shows it to us, dramatizes it to us, and gives specific details, not just in the form of dialogue, but as we see in other details, to show this to us. And is it quirky? Yes, and not in a fun, you know, positive sense, but it is, as you read through, and I'll let you read it on your own, the rest of it. It's about the student walking home from Champ because her dad wasn't able to come pick her up and what went through her mind on that journey home. It's a really powerful essay. And it took, like I said, as with the other one, it did not just fall down from the sky fully formed. It took a good amount of revision and false starts to get to that place. But hopefully showing some of these models to you, and I should note this, the essay kind of concludes with the student talking about how it led to her passion for lacrosse and what that's meant to her in her life and how it helped her deal with some of her home life issues. And I mean, like a lot of students on the surface probably have similar situations where they're like, I'm passionate about X sport and I have a bad home life. But everyone's situation is slightly different, right? Like there's a famous quote by Tolstoy, the guy who wrote War and Peace. He said that all happy families are alike and all unhappy families are distinct in their own, little ways. And all of you, I guess some of you are happy, but you need to figure out what makes you distinct in your own specific way. Okay. You don't think that your essay has to be about something as serious as conflicted about your heritage or like your family situation, because some of you might not have that. But hopefully this has given you some looks into ways to write an interesting essay that will be something you're proud of, right? So does anybody have any final questions about this before I go ahead and close shop for today? What do we think? Was this helpful? Yeah? Yes. All right, good. All right, will you do this? I still have 2 more classes with you next week, right? Oh, wait, today's Thursday. So next week I have Tuesday and Thursday's class. And I don't plan on like keeping you for longer than I need to, but I'm going to give you an anonymous survey right now. What other questions do you have? Is there anything else we can talk about as a class in regards to this or other stuff related to like English where I might have a skill that I could share with you? So I'm going to put that survey real quick in the chat. And if you fill that out, consider that your exit ticket to get out of here, okay? If you have no questions, then don't, I guess, fill it out. But if there are other things that I could talk about in this, all right, I saved it so now it's no longer restricted to just Loudoun County. So fill that out if you have questions, and I'll try to use that for any sort of mini lessons for next class, okay? So once you get that, you're dismissed. Bye, everyone.